Sean O'Malley continues to impress in the UFC, and for a fighter known mainly for his striking, he has evolved a more complete skill set by showing off his grappling skills. Teddy Atlas has broken down how his ground game is similar to Israel Adesanya's. Stick around as we reveal exactly what Teddy said, plus we count down the top 6 best grapplers in MMA. So stay tuned. UFC 280. O'Malley's win over Peter Yan may have been controversial, but the argument for him getting the better of Yan is based on his striking. Commentators like Joe Rogan have questioned the scoring system as Yan looked to win the fight through control and plenty of takedowns, but O'Malley had the edge on their feet. Even though Yan was able to get the contest to the ground several times, he was never able to use them to his advantage. That's why legendary boxing trainer Teddy Atlas thinks that O'Malley should be compared to Israel Adesanya for his ground game. He said that O'Malley has developed where he can survive on the mat so that he eludes takedowns and is able to wriggle his way out of sticky situations. It reminds Atlas of Adesanya because he's also a strong striker, and that means that he wants to keep the fight on his feet, where he can do the most damage. But that also leaves an opening for his opponents. O'Malley is now the #1 contender in the Bantamweight division, and he'll have to have a strong ground game if he wants a chance of taking the title off Aljamain Sterling. Sterling is a former semi-pro wrestler and has a deadly grappling game. In his last fight against TJ Dillashaw, he may have finished the fight with a TKO, but it was his wrestling that allowed him to dominate the entire fight. Number 6, Charles Oliveira. Oliveira is still in shock after being thoroughly outclassed by Islam Makhachev at UFC 280, but that doesn't take away from what he has done in the octagon. He still holds the record for the most number of submissions in the UFC with an incredible 21 over his career. Whenever Oliveira had control of someone's back, you could be pretty sure that the fight was about to end. From rear naked and anaconda chokes to guillotines and armbars, Oliveira has finished a fight in just about every submission you can imagine. His game plan would usually be to pummel his opponent with striking until they were ready for a takedown, before finishing the job in clinical style. That strategy didn't work against Islam Makhachev, but as many have said, he's on another level. The Bronx may have lost the title, but he's more than keen to earn it back again. Oliveira has had one of the greatest comeback careers in the history of the sport, so who knows what he's capable of in the future. Number 5, Henry Cejudo. These days, Henry Cejudo's name is mainly in the headlines for his commentary. He's never short of an opinion about current fighters, but not so long ago, Cejudo had one of the most impressive MMA careers of all time. In a rags to riches story, Cejudo came from nothing to become one of the most successful athletes of all time. He started wrestling at a young age, and there was no limit to his skill. By the time he was 22, he won the gold medal at the Olympic Games, before turning his attention to MMA. Cejudo excelled in MMA too, showing that he knew how to distance himself and strike too, but his wrestling was the foundation of his martial arts. Whenever his fights dropped to the mat, he was in the comfort zone and was clearly the best of the division. The key was that he only used it when he needed to, which also made the other fighters weary of taking him to the ground. I mean, would you really challenge an Olympic gold medalist at their own sport? Number 4, Jon Jones. A man who needs almost no introduction is Jon Jones. As he slowly prepares for his predicted heavyweight debut, let's have a look at one of his most deadly weapons. His striking is dynamic and complete, but when his opponents drag him to the ground, it doesn't end much better. His lengthy build and quick movement make him a hard man to pin down. Like the rest of his game, Jones seems to have a natural instinct for where to position himself, and with a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and a black belt in Gaido Jutsu, his skills have been sharpened. You can see this in some of his most famous wins against Lyoto Machida, Quinton Jackson, and Vitor Belfort, with technically brilliant submissions, and most of his submissions were after he had already dominated them in striking. The only man who ever really tested him both on and off his feet was Alexander Gustafsson, but it looks like we aren't ever likely to see a trilogy fight between the two. It will be interesting to see how he adapts to the heavyweight division, but the smart money is on Jones, showcasing all of his best moves. Whether he keeps that fight on the feet or the ground, any fight of Bones promises to be exciting. Up next, who is number 1 on the list of best grapplers in MMA and which former wrestling pro show was just dethroned by a once-in-a-lifetime shot, so don't go anywhere. Number 3. Khamzat Chimaev. People have been talking about Khamzat Chimaev for a long time, and if you ask Chimaev, he is sure that he will be holding multiple belts sometime soon. He caused controversy when he missed weight at UFC 279 and was put up against Kevin Holland instead of Nate Diaz. Chimaev made light work of Holland, submitting him with a Bravo choke in the second round. It only added to his record of 5 submissions in his 12-fight flawless career. Chimaev was an accomplished wrestler long before he set foot in the octagon. He won the Swedish national championships 3 times after migrating to the country from Russia. Since then, he has flown through the MMA world, even setting a record for the shortest time between fights. In his fight against Li Jingliang, he threw him around and made him look like an amateur. He handled other opponents like Gilbert Burns and John Phillips in the same way. Chimaev is part of a movement back towards wrestling in the UFC, dethroning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that used to be considered the most effective for ground skills. He may be the best grappler in the UFC right now, but he hasn't been truly tested by a champion yet. However, at this rate, it won't be long before he is headlining events. Number 2. Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman may have recently lost his title to Leon Edwards, but he is still widely considered one of the greatest welterweights to ever fight in the division's history. And it was no surprise that he was finally stopped by a deadly strike. On the ground, no one has an answer for him. He has had the better of fighters like Colby Covington, Gilbert Burns, and Tyrone Woodley, who are all known for their wrestling. Usman's one submission finish is deceiving. The majority of his fights have gone to a decision, and they have always been unanimous. That's because Usman is able to control the pace of the fight by controlling what happens on the mat. Usman has strong roots in wrestling. He was an NCAA Division II wrestler and went on to compete in freestyle wrestling before transitioning to MMA. His 9 knockout wins show that he is an exceptional striker too, but his forte is definitely on the ground. That's why Leon Edwards had to knock Usman out in the last few seconds of the fight to beat him. Number 1. Islam Makhachev. The best grappler in MMA right now has to be Islam Makhachev. His striking and fighting IQ are also strong, but where he makes the difference is his overpowered wrestling that leaves his opponents with no room to breathe. And it's no surprise, Islam fits into the lineage of former lightweight champion Khabib Nurmagomedov. He's the cousin of Nurmagomedov and has many of the same skill sets. Plus, Khabib has been in Makhachev's corner since day one, not just training him, but getting him exposure in the UFC to guarantee a title fight. Since joining the UFC in 2015, he's suffered the only loss of his career, but out of his 12 wins, 6 have finished with a submission. It was the latest Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt to fall prey to Dagestani wrestling, which Makhachev thinks is on a different level to other grappling. And he proved that with his latest win against Charles Oliveira, who has the record for the most submissions in the UFC history. But Makhachev made it look routine. Like his other opponents, he suffocated Oliveira with his strength and positioning, with nowhere to go and not many options. It was only a matter of time before a submission came, which was barely in the second round of the fight. If anyone wants to prove themselves the best grappler on the planet, they'll have to get through Makhachev right now. Which fighter do you think is the best grappler in the MMA? And is O'Malley on his way to becoming a UFC champion? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again at the next one.